So I'm very jealous, listeners, of Savannah's microphone because it's all like flared and glammed. It's light. It's lit up in purples and blues, and it's changing colors. And I just learned. Oh, now it's green. And I just learned that this is a gamer microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's her young. There you go. The very fancy Amazon microphone. And is this your 18-year-old gamer son or 12-year-old gamer son?
The 18-year-old, which I find like way funnier that he's got this fancy little microphone doing his Minecraft podcasts or whatever it is that he does in his room.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's going to make this podcast all the more exciting that I get to look at that microphone. Okay, I'm going to introduce you for the listeners who don't know you. You are a South Carolinian. Is that right? South Carolinian?
Yes, got it.
You're a South Carolinian hairdresser and salon owner who focuses on color and extensions. So let's just jump into your story. How did you get into hair in the first place?
So I didn't even realize how long I'd been doing hair until the other day because someone asked me like when I graduated, but I've been behind the chair for 18 years now. But I got started, I went to a vocational school, which is if you don't have one of those in your area, it's when you can go to like basically like a trade school while you're in high school. So I was taking cosmetology classes while I was doing high school classes as well. And it was kind of happen chance. My mom did go to hair school, but she only did hair for a year. Once she got out, she got contact dermatitis, which I know so many people suffer from now. But that really wasn't even my reasoning. She was very against me doing hair.
Okay, that's interesting. I definitely want to go there. But for those of our listeners who don't know what contact dermatitis is, tell us.
I honestly don't even know the best way to explain it, but it can surface from overexposure to certain chemicals. And I think the best way to explain would be just like a really extreme form of, oh my God, what's the word?
Like eczema?
Eczema, yeah, kind
Okay.
of. It can be really painful for some people. I mean, it can be very raised and bumpy and itchy, and it just flares up anytime you're exposed to a certain chemical. So obviously, anything to do hair related, even like when you have gloves on, it can still, so that can definitely take people out of the industry for sure.
And as we're talking about it, I'm putting my hand lotion on.
Right. You're like, I'm just making sure.
I woke up with very dry, cracked hands today, and you mentioned contact dermatitis. So here I am, I'm moisturizing my hands.
You're like, not the dermatitis, it's going to get me.
Okay, so she got contact dermatitis after a year or after a little bit. And so she only lasted a year, even though she used gloves. I wonder how often that happens. I mean, of all the hairdressers that I talk to regularly and all the episodes that I've done, I haven't heard of a case bad enough for that. But it's really interesting. And does she still suffer from kind of sensitive skin on her hands?
Not necessarily on her hands. She does have like sensitive skin, but you got to think too, this was like early 80s. So there's no telling what she was getting her hands in, like ammonia wise and chemical wise.
Sure.
Who knows what really happened, but that's what she said. But yeah, she still did hair, like at home on us, but didn't keep her license up. But she hasn't had any contact dermatitis issues since then. So who knows?
That's good. Okay. Before I rudely interrupted you, you were saying that your mom didn't want you to go to hair school.
No, and it wasn't necessarily they were like, you are not doing this, but it wasn't a fan favorite at home at first, because it was viewed more as like, well, you're not going to go anywhere doing this. You're not going to really make much money. Don't you want to do something that you're going to be able to make like way more money at, be able to support yourself, and retirement, 401k, all those kind of things you get with a more traditional job. So I wasn't taken super seriously at first with it. And I'll be honest, like I kind of started hair school, a little bit for funsies, just because I had a girlfriend that was like, do you want to do hair school? And I was like, okay. But another funny thing is I actually almost didn't get into the program because you do have an attendance, requirement for the program.
You got to show up.
Yeah. So I had very, very good grades when I was in school. Like I graduated with a 4.0 or 3.8, something like that. But I just was skipping class a lot, as we do. And so
Hold on a second. So you needed to have good enough attendance in normal school, high school, right? in
Yeah.
order to get into the cosmetology program.
Yep. And I did
And
not.
you were not showing up to class. And so
She
why
was not there.
you were not present?
I was
And
not.
why? Do you remember why you just and like when you didn't show up, where were you? Were you at home
With a
or like
boyfriend.
you're with the boyfriend and
Of
the boyfriend
course.
wasn't showing up either?
Yeah. No, he wasn't even in school. So, I mean, like, he was already graduated.
No.
Yeah.
Scandal. How much older
Scandalous
was
older
he?
men.
Oh my gosh.
Not
How
that
much
much
older?
older. Oh, like
Just
2 years.
oh, okay.
Just barely. Nothing too crazy. But yeah, so I actually didn't get accepted. And it was the summer before, I guess, junior year would have started. And I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing hair school. And I was actually I was wanting to go to SCAD, which is called Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia. So I'd already kind of started looking at my opportunities and like what I was going to do there. And I got my letter in the mail saying they had accepted me. It was because a girl had moved away and I got her spot. So I had to take
Nice.
the orientation late and everything. So that's kind of, yeah, it was kind of happen chance. Like nobody really wanted me to do it. And I kind of wasn't supposed to be there. So
Hold on. I think I missed something. So you applied for SCAD. Oh, so SCAD was the name of the cosmetology school.
no, sorry. Yeah. So I thought I wasn't going to hair school. Like I
Right.
didn't get accepted. So I was like, well, I need to start making my plans for college or what I'm going to do. And so I wanted to go to SCAD, the College of Art and Design in Savannah. So I'd already started doing like my application process for that during the summer because I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do instead, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I got accepted into hair school. So I was like,
And
well,
then
I'm not
hair
gonna do
school
that.
accepted you because somebody left.
Yes,
Got
yes.
it.
It was just because
Okay.
the girl moved away. So I was the next in line. So I got her spot.
Very cool. And even though nobody wanted you to do it, were you excited about that? You
No,
were
I was
excited that
definitely
you,
excited.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was always, I was the time frame of which when I was going into hair school would have been that like 2005 time range, which was, are you familiar with like the scene hair, like the
Yeah.
MySpace days?
Yep.
So I was
Oh
definitely
yeah.
more in that crowd,
I
and I was always,
crushed MySpace.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
was
mean, what a
killing
time!
on MySpace.
What a time to be alive. But that was definitely the friend that was stealing my mom's shears that she had from cosmetology school and was like cutting my friend's hair at home and coloring it. So I already, played around with that a lot. So I was excited to actually like learn how to do it professionally.
So you had some experience with messing around with hair and you went to school and were you good at it? Were you good at like the professional methods?
I mean, I like to think so. I was not good at perms. Oh my gosh, because that was the biggest thing. It was like if you couldn't do a perm, it was like you were just, you were sentenced to death row. They were like, you're not going to make it in this industry. You're never going to do anything if you couldn't do a perm. And I just never could get it down well enough to do anything with this. I was always worried about that. But I mean, everything else that, I felt like they tried to teach me to do as far as like, it was so outdated. It was like finger waves and, just like kind of these roller sets and stuff. I mean, I was like, I could do it, but I didn't feel like I was proficient at it.
Yeah.
But everything else, when it came to like color and cutting, I felt like I had a knack for it, because I was like, I'm making some cool stuff, but it wasn't necessarily like what my teachers wanted to see because it wasn't a perm set.
Right. Okay. So you get out. It sounded like you didn't have much difficulty. So you got your license, and then what?
So after I got my license, so while I was in hair school, luckily I had a really great friend in hair school with me, and she and I were the only people out of I think like 40 girls that assisted in a salon while we were in hair school, and she was just smart enough, and that was like kind of that was not like it is today. Now that's such a common thing people know to do, and back then it just I don't know, you just didn't know to do that, and she just luckily had the foresight to. She was like, we should really be assisting in a salon. Like that's the only way we're going to learn, to do like modern things. And she went with one salon and she found out about another like high-end salon in like the downtown area that was hiring for like an apprentice little like salon coordinator situation. And she set the interview up for me and everything. And so they hired me on the spot. And so I assisted with them for like a year while I was in hair school. So I immediately continued working there. So I was already was comfortable in the salon setting, and that that was a godsend. I think if I hadn't already been doing that, I think I would have a very much, different story for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Now, was that difficult because you were spending all your time on your feet, behind the chair, hustling around? When you weren't at the salon, you were in school, and when you weren't in school, you were at the salon.
Well, I mean, plot twist, I had my oldest son while I was in high school. So,
Whoa!
yeah. So I was
Where's
like,
the record scratch, Donovan?
yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Even
Wait,
harder. Yeah, even harder.
do I have
Yeah, I got
a
it done.
record scratch
Mm-hmm.
sound bite? I have various sound bites.
It was that
Hold
older
on.
boyfriend.
Anyway, okay. So you had your first son, now 18 years old,
Yeah.
when you were in school and assisting in the salon.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. It was insane. I mean, it's weird when you look back at it. You're like, how in the world was I doing that? Like, how did I push myself through that? But I mean, honestly, I had such a good support system. I have
Parents.
amazing parents. Yeah, amazing parents. And my partner was, great too, so it couldn't have worked out better, and I had a lot of people in my corner rooting for me and wanted to see me succeed. And that's the only way I would have been able to get through that for sure. Because it was a wild time.
That's pretty awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
given the stresses of the situation and things could have fallen off the rails, so to speak, it sounds like that was pretty good. And your boyfriend at the time, is he still involved? Did you marry him, or is
I
he
did.
still involved?
Yeah.
You
I
did?
did end up marrying him. Yeah, and we had another son together.
Great.
Yeah, so it was good. We're not together anymore, thank God.
Okay.
But
But still,
yeah,
you know,
it was
okay.
a good situation for the time. Like it was really great, and I was supported, and it was the best situation it could have been for sure.
All right. All right. So you were
Yeah,
able to make it through this very
made it
stressful
through.
time, and you graduated, you got your license, and then
Mhm.
did you keep working at that salon?
I did for a while. Yes. I don't even know how long. Maybe a year or so after, but they didn't really do like commission.
Okay.
They wanted me to do booth rent, and all of that was really confusing to me. I didn't understand, because if you don't have anyone helping you, you don't understand any of that. What's the
Yeah.
difference between a 1099, a W-2 commit, it's confusing. And I
Sure.
did know that I couldn't afford booth rent.
You
Because I
didn't
didn't
have
have
enough clients yet.
yeah, right. I didn't have enough clients to support that weekly booth rent and supplying all my own supplies. So I was kind of like, I can't do that. And so I ended up leaving there. And there's a somewhat like, I guess you could say a chain. I don't know. Can I say names of chain salons?
Sure.
There's a chain salon here in South Carolina called Urban Nirvana. They have like 6 locations, and they were opening up a new one in my area. But I had to wait because it wasn't like open yet. It was going to be brand new. So I actually worked part-time at like some retail shops for a little bit. I just like didn't even do hair for that time because I was like, I'd rather just wait, and do hair there. Moved there when they opened. Beautiful luxury spa salon, gorgeous, like very high-end clientele. But the commission rate was 60/40, which can be standard for some places, but that place, it was really interesting. I had a manager there, and the manager had never worked in hair or spas,
Oh,
anything. Had no,
interesting.
I said that so many times in meetings that I just felt like that was
Wow.
inappropriate for, someone to be leading a team that had no beauty industry insight.
How
And
could
because
they
she'd been like
even know what to do?
right. And I was like, they were like previously like a manager at like an Abercrombie or something. And I was like, I
Oh
understand
boy.
you may know how to manage like people, but I was like, it's just so different in our industry, how to handle
Yeah.
personalities and just the day to day. And yeah, she was not great. That was not a good experience as far as that. And what ended up happening, since they were trying to promote the spa side, they would book, the people would come in, book massages and things like that. And then to promote us, they would book free shampoo blowouts for the hairstylist for free. Right.
You're right.
So
As
I
in,
get
as in, you're free.
yeah, I was free. I
As,
was not getting paid. And
as
they were
in,
like, oh, you'll get
yeah.
tipped really well. No, none of these people tipped because they'd already tipped their massage therapist. Lucky
Right.
some people, would tip, but I mean, it'd be like $20 back then was very generous, so I was not making the money I needed to make.
So you became a shampoo tech for free, a free shampoo tech.
Honey, I knew how to do a shampoo. That's all I was doing. Because you would come in and they'd hand you your schedule. The little receptionist girl would come in and here's your schedule. And you're seeing a bunch of names and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm booked out. It's all these shampoos. I was like, what the hell?
I've never heard of that. And in all of my conversations, I've never heard of that. But I understand why they would think that that's a good idea. And I understand why you would hate it.
Yeah. It was maybe one or two a week or something,
right.
That would have been totally fine. But it was every day. I was just like, what is happening right now? And I was like, is this illegal? This can't be right.
Yeah. Oh Horrible. My God, that's hilarious. All right. So you, how long were you there?
Year, 2 years. I'm like, I can't even remember. I hate when you start getting to that age and you have to, I'm like, I gotta get on paper here and write down and remember the exact years. But it was something between year and a half, 2 years. And then I left there. And so then we circle back. The same friend that I had in hair school, she was working at that same salon that she had in hair school. And she was leaving her assistant position to move to booth rent. So since she had stayed in the same place long enough, she had built up enough clientele doing clients on the days she was allowed and stuff like that to move to booth rent, which if I had done that at a place that would have worked with me and done commission and stuff like that, I could have already been in a place where I was ready to build, go to booth rent. But they were needing a new assistant for the owner. And so she was like, hey, we need a new assistant. Do you want to come work here? I was like, yep, perfect. So I did that.
Very nice. Okay. And did you build a clientele there?
I did. Yeah, I did. So I moved there. I can't even, again, I'm like, I don't even remember how long I assisted. I built a clientele there very fast because it was closer to my hometown area. And I got a lot of really good education. The owner was a really good mentor and helped me learn a lot of technical skills that I hadn't really worked on in the past year or so. And I built up extremely quick. And then I stayed at that salon for 8.5 years. Long time of my career. Yes, I built up, pretty much, I would say what led me into doing creative color, working with brands. That was the build up. That was kind of my building block was at that salon.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So you were there for 8 years. I find it very interesting that in that booth rental situation, you learned technical stuff. You kind of found the things that you liked and you built clientele, whereas at the previous places that were supposed to be commission, you didn't.
Right.
But it just has to do with what kind of salon it is, what kind of people are there. You said the owner was good, your friend was there, and you were probably extra engaged and it was close to your hometown. So it seems like the stars aligned right there and that was good for you. So you were there for 8 years, and why did you leave there?
There's a lot of reasons behind that one. It was, it kind of became more, it was definitely more of I would say a kind of a toxic situation. It was, I say because when you say that and you're we were there for 8 years, but this particular place, they had rooms already. So you weren't in an open floor situation. It was suites before suites were a thing. And so you didn't have to be on the floor with other people, anyone else. So that's what made it, I think that's why people have stayed in that situation as long as they did, because you were already on your own, basically. You didn't have to deal with things. But they were just, there's so many, there's so many things I definitely couldn't even get into.
Personalities.
Or just things that went on in that place that I just, just don't even get into. It just wasn't the right place for me anymore. And vice versa. I wasn't the right stylist to be in that salon either. Sure. So it was just time to go. And then I had I guess you would say childhood friend of mine. It was, I would say a woman. She was best friends with my sister in high school, and she had a salon nearby, and she had talked to me previously, had wanted me to come work there, and the time just wasn't right, and I wasn't sure, what to do yet, and the stars just kind of aligned, and so I moved there, and that was my final move to a salon before I opened my own salon.
All right. Very, very cool. Okay. So I want to jump towards current day.
Yeah.
And ask you about something that I found pretty interesting as I was perusing your website.
Yes.
You have, why do you laugh?
I was going to say website. I was like lack thereof.
Well, I mean, it's like a Canva site, right?
It's something my assistant put together probably, I don't even know when. Like it's definitely, it's not professional at all.
Well, I think it's good enough. You've got a link tree off of your Instagram, and you click on, your link tree, and it took me to various things. Like you've got the information for, what it's like to book with you, what to expect in the salon. It had pricing information. And so pricing information is what I found pretty interesting.
Okay.
In 2023, which is now 2 years ago, time flies.
Yeah.
You enacted some pricing policies. And so one of the topics in the industry that we've been discussing, that we as an industry have been discussing for, I don't know, probably 5 years now, is hourly versus, flat rate. Mm-hmm. Now, on your pricing list, you have both. You have hourly and all-in starting at pricing.
Yes.
So first of all, explain to us why, maybe not why, but what it was like to enact this pricing policy in 2023, which I assume was a price increase because as I'm reading what you're describing to your clients, it sounded like a price increase. So describe, why you increased your prices and how that went, and then why you chose the pricing that you did.
So I've done both options quite some time. I've done hourly and I guess you would say like standard, a la carte, however you want to list that. I started doing hourly when I started doing a lot more like creative colors, corrective colors, just those all over global bleachings. And I could not put a cap on that. I couldn't put like a certain price and say, hey, this is going to be $300 when you come in, because you can do consultations with people, even if they come in person. You can do a consultation with them and think, okay, I think this is going to take me X amount of hours to do this. And then you've quoted this person and you come in and it may take longer or it may take more product, that kind of thing. So I found it easier for me to be able to get the service done in that one session or be able to do everything that I wanted to do. It was easier for me to do hourly and then be upfront about the cost with my guests and say, hey, I charge, whatever, $125 an hour for this. I'm estimating it'll take us about 4 hours, but it could go over to this amount of time. But I just want you to know that's what my hourly rate is. And so that way they knew upfront, okay, this is how much this is going to cost me, just because I just couldn't ever figure out a way to put even like a starting cost on those types of services. Whereas because it's more so because of the duration of time that it takes on them, because there are creative color clients who could come in and it could take me 2 hours. There's some it could take me 7. Whereas if I know someone's coming in and getting a root retouch and like a partial highlight, I know how much time that takes me on general. You know what I mean? Like that's going to take me 2.5 hours typically. And that's just across the board. Whereas like creative and corrective, that could be anything. So I just said, it's better for me to just have an hourly structure because I don't know what's going to happen with these appointments. And for my my colors, standard colors, highlights, balayage, whatever, I know what's going to happen there. That's very easy. So I can give a starting cost on that. So I thought it made it just more simple for me and for my guests.
Okay. And so how was that received? How was it received? How has it been received? Do your clients like it?
Yeah, I think it's always been received really well. Even when I first introduced the hourly rate, it was obviously like a much lower rate because I was like still, I would say like building more of that end of like my creative color clientele and creative color, but I've always been a color expert. So I've always had a big color clientele. So it was something I luckily felt, I guess you say like blessed enough. I haven't ever had like pushback from people being like, who do you think you are charging hourly or anything like that? It's, when you explain to people the process of, the type of products that you're using, the time it takes and how meticulous we need to be in your knowledge. And, if people were that weird about, want to know, and you explain that to them, they get it. They're like, okay, I get why you need to charge hourly for this. But I think it's always been received really well. And I think makes it more understandable for our guests when they see the hour, the hourly, like, why is this hourly? Why isn't this just like a starting price? That kind of thing.
If they trust you, right?
Yeah.
I think that's because if I'm thinking it through, and there are going to be some clients who might not trust that you're going to be as efficient and fast if you're getting paid by the hour. It's like, when you have to hire an attorney, and you get a bill and it's like 10 hours, for writing a letter. And you're like, what? That's bullshit. He took too long to write the letter. I imagine that, yeah, exactly. And so have you had any problems like that? Has anybody been like, I don't really want to do that?
No, I really, luckily, I've been really lucky with that. I have not had anybody that's been like, that sounds weird, I'm not doing that. I mean, of course you have, people who, come in for consultations or quotes and just don't book because it's, not the right fit for them or what may have you. But no, I mean, I really haven't had anyone have any issues with me. I think the thing is I'm extremely upfront with my guests or, anybody that's coming in looking to book an appointment that, I tell them, this is what I estimate for the time. We could go over. There's possibly we could even be under. And I'm going to give you a kind of a grand idea of how long this is going to take, and this is the price that you're looking at. And so I make sure people are prepared before they sit in my chair, because that's the worst feeling in the world, to go in to get a service done and you're expecting it to be $300, and then you go to the checkout and they're like, okay, that's gonna be $750 today. Some people can't swing that, so I don't ever want to put somebody in that position. So it's just, I think it's all about during those consultations, just being extremely upfront, very thorough, very clear. And like you said, building that trust, you have to make sure people understand you and you understand them and they trust you. And when you build that trust, people are like, yeah, like I trust you, I believe in you, and I think you're worth this hourly.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the price increase in general. About what kind of a price increase was it? 10%, 20%? Do you remember?
I would say it was probably, I think we added up. It wasn't across the board at the time. So it wasn't like 15% all the way around. I think it was like barely 10%. So it was more so I had to kind of correct some areas that I hadn't raised in a while, like in my hair cutting, things like that. I hadn't brought that up. So it was hard to say like it was 15% across. It was more like some areas could have been like 15, some could have been only been like 5%. Because it's sometimes you just kind of take a step back and look like, I should probably charge a little bit more for that than what I am. And obviously we know economic things, that's what's coming into play now, why we're having to do price increases. But I always take a step back and look at, what am I offering people? What is the cost of these brands that I'm using? What is the experience that I'm giving? And what price can I put on this experience? And, and I feel like once you get to a certain, tier of, I don't know, hairstylist, you've been doing it for so long, you need to be adding in your years of expertise into what you're charging people, because that's what people are paying for at the end of the day. This is your knowledge that you're giving them. So you should charge for that. Absolutely.
And did you receive any pushback? Or what was your experience when you increased your prices?
Never. I come to find that I don't really ever get, I don't know if it's something about living in the South, but you just don't get pushback in person. Or like there would never be like a message be like, how dare you charge me more? It would never be anything like that. Okay. It might be something, somebody might they just stop coming to you, which is fine. I mean, I'm always like, hey, I will find another stylist that fits your budget. Like if that means it's in-house, like I will do, or let me know what your budget is and I will work with you. Cause I'd rather keep someone and it be something that still works for me too. You know what I mean? Than lose them. But that's fine. But it's more so you'll get like these little sly comments at like some appointments. They'll be like, well, you over here charging $3,000 for a balayage now. It's just silly stuff like that, right. But nothing actually mean or, rude at all. No.
And as far as the percentage of clients who you lost, was it anything significant, anything meaningful at all?
Nothing to notice, no.
Okay. And have you increased your prices since then? So here we are, 2025. So that was 2 years ago.
I have, yes. So I did do another price increase at the end of last year. It should be, I think I just only updated it on my highlights on my Instagram. It should be different. I'll have to look at that. I'll have to ask my assistant about that one. I'm not even sure. I'm like, I've turned off the brain. I'm like, everything's up to her. But I am planning to do another one this year. I like to do one every year, whether that just be not a price increase on every single service, but update, certain categories as they should. But I also don't want to I do worry about outpricing yourself. I do think that's a thing. I think there can come to a point where it's like, how much can you really keep charging, for things like that. So that's always a delicate, kind of balance to figure out.
Yeah. Now, bottom line, at the end of the day, you're trying to balance the supply of services that you can do with the demand for those services.
Yeah.
You're trying
absolutely.
to balance that out. And so, over the years, some people have thrown out different rules of thumb. If you're booked out, 2 or 3 weeks or more, then, you could probably do a price increase. But everybody has their own way that they run their business and their own kinds of services. So it's really hard to enact or at least throw out a blanket rule of thumb that applies to everybody. But
Absolutely. Yeah. That's I think the hardest thing for, stylists when say you're just not as assertive of maybe I don't know, I don't want to say assertive business person, but you just are hesitant. You're not sure if it's time or what you should do or how much you should go up. It can be really scary, and there's so much information out there. There's so many different people telling you what you should and you shouldn't do. And so it can get really confusing and overwhelming trying to decide what's best for your business when there's so many opinions out there.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, there's going to be a little trial and error. I think that every beauty professional needs to work with, try something.
Yeah.
And if you're very worried about it, try a 5% increase, something very, very small. Sometimes, something less than 10% is so small that the number becomes weird. It's like, 5% on a $50 service is $52.50, which is weird.
Throw up. I hate that so much. Yeah. That's why I never could just do okay, we're doing 10% across the board, because then it could make it uneven. I'm like, no. We have to my head, everything has to be in either 5, 10, 15, 20, those kind of increments.
Right. Otherwise it looks weird.
Yeah, I can't. That number that gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Well, hopefully your experience of increasing prices and it not impacting your business negatively in a way, in any way, is encouraging to anybody who's particularly fearful about it, because that has been the tendency in our industry going back, 25 years, going back to as long as I've been in the industry. Yeah. Obviously, it goes back way before that. And with inflation, we all have to keep our prices, moving up to at least be matching inflation. And, inflation.
Make what you were making the year before.
To make what you were making the year before, at least from a purchasing power standpoint. If you made $50,000 last year, ideally, you're making $52,000 or $53,000 this year to be able to afford the same amount of stuff.
Yeah. And then when you look at what you've got to charge to combat the inflation to where you're still giving yourself a raise like you should be getting every year, it's
right.
It gets sent down to the consumer, which is the guest, so it can seem really scary and overwhelming on how to navigate that.
Exactly. And you bring up a point, kind of a sophisticated point that a lot of people don't consider, which is you need an increase in your prices just to cover the inflating value of the dollar. In other words, the dollar loses value every year, right?
Yeah.
So you need to increase about 5% to accommodate for the lower value of the dollar. And then to give yourself a raise, in air quotes, make a little bit more money, you should probably increase another 5%. And that's where the 10% comes in.
Right.
And, if you do it regularly and you keep up with it, It shouldn't be that impactful on your clients. Now, obviously, everybody has some clients who are more sensitive than others. Mm-hmm. And you have to balance, going back to the whole supply and demand thing, you have to balance out the demand for your services. So, and this is why we talk about all the other things. We talk about the customer service, the basic things, the showing up on time, the reminders for your clients, the recommendations of the product, obviously doing a great job on their hair and giving them what they want and doing all those other things. And it's going to make it harder for your client to leave you, even if you increase your prices.
Yeah. You just got to make it's got to be worth their time,
Yeah, totally. All right. So what are you seeing behind the chair these days? Like as far as style trends, are you into any particular kind of evolving style trends, or are you find your clients asking for anything, new versus last year?
Oh my goodness. I feel like it's so all over the place these days. Especially like when you do what I do, I don't like just niche into like one category of like color. I do kind of, if it's color, I do it. So it can be a huge broad spectrum of trends and things that you're being asked for. I would say as someone who was primarily a creative color artist, I am seeing way less people getting full heads of creative color. That has definitely decreased. And I don't know if that's necessarily a style, like a fad change, or if that's an economic trend where that's come down. And so everybody is starting to lean even more into lived in colors, which I love. I like the look of it even more. I think that's really cool. So I would say I've had way more guests that are opting for, even though they want to see like a pop of color, they don't necessarily want to see it root to ends anymore. They want it to be like a little bit more lived in. That sort of thing I would say is definitely pretty big. But obviously I think pretty much everyone right now is getting the shag haircut. That's I would say every alternative hairstylist, that's like all you're doing these days is a shag haircut, the Sabrina Carpenter bang, anything like that. That's the biggest thing going on right now.
Okay. Since you're a mother of 3 dragons, 18 years old and 2 12-year-olds, boys, speak to the hairstyle of the boys these days, because it's very specific and they all look exactly the same. And I don't know, what do you call it? The mop or just like the indifference, the apathy?
I don't even know what you would call it. I saw online the other day, somebody was like, why does every teenager look like this? And it's this kid on Avatar, like the newer movie. Okay. I don't know if you can see. Like, do it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I don't even know what you call that.
For the listeners who are not watching, she showed like the green Avatar character with a very moppy head of curls, and it's very much. Have you also seen the meme on the gram? I think it shows like a bunch of alpacas or something, or llamas, yes. And they all have the floppy mess, and they're all standing next to each other looking funny.
But it's kind of cute. Like, it's kind of cute on some of these kids. Like, I think it's adorable. None of my boys don't wear their hair like that. They could care less. They're not into styles like that. But and I've only had like a handful. I don't really do like men's cuts or kids cuts, but the ones that I have, I've done it a couple times, and I like it's cute. I don't know what you would call it. It's just like a faded flop. I don't know.
Yeah, the flop. I like the flop, the messy flop. And it's so funny because a lot of the kids, they want it to seem like they don't care, but they're all messing with their hair constantly. Like they're so conscious about it. And you see them in packs, and they're like kind of, yeah, exactly. And I just think it's so funny. So I'm interviewing a barber soon, so I'm going to ask him about that.
Hopefully they have a name. You have to let me know what the name is, because there's got to be. I feel like every hairstyle like has a a name. I have no idea what that one is, but it needs one for sure.
Gotta be. I haven't seen enough on it online or in like the trade media, the beauty trade media. I haven't seen enough on it. There needs to be
huge.
more.
I mean,
it's huge.
That's like every
it's everywhere.
kid. Yeah,
every kid.
I don't know. I mean, I've got to ask. Maybe if I see one of these kids, I'm like, well, if I want to get that done, what do I call that? My barber,
Right.
They'll have a name for it.
When you go in and you sit in the chair, what do you tell the barber? You like want the mess?
What's that called?
The flop?
The fady flop?
The paca?
The paca?
What about okay, so with trends, makes ton of sense, more lived in. The creative color is a little bit more maybe lived in version of creative color. Maybe it lasts longer. It's a little bit less extreme. That makes a lot of sense. Anything new with client behavior? Like, like a couple years ago, what?
How long we got?
Tell me.
Honestly, I would say this stems from coming back from COVID shutdown. I feel like behavior, and it's very small increments. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's not like this is not, if it was a ton, I would not be doing hair anymore. But we really have noticed just some wild behavior from people, just like almost like the audacity. I'm like, what are you thinking? You're saying that out loud right now?
Like what?
Just, like, where do I start? I'm like trying to sit here and think of like just crazy stories, like things that we've seen like in the shop. Like we had someone, this was like right when we came back from shutdown, and the guest unfortunately felt like she had left happy and then came back in. I hope nobody I hope they somehow don't hear this, but
the clients don't listen to this.
I don't think so at all. I'm like, they're not going to hear this. So came back in a few moments later, visibly shaking, and felt like the stylist had cut too much of their hair off. And I'd seen it. It was like an inch trim. It was nothing. And they believed that they had cut too much of their hair off, and they were now no longer going to be able to communicate with their spirit guides. God. That is what they did for a living. And so the stylist ruined their income and disconnected them from their ancestors. It was a lot of that talk going on in the middle of the salon floor. And I was like, oh, okay, right. Anyway.
How do you respond to that?
Yeah. And then I would say like more like mental health issues, as far as just kind of like almost like putting too much on stylists and like blaming what's going on in their life, like being late for an appointment. Because they've got like a lot of bad things going on in their life, is somehow the stylist's fault, and then taking it out on the stylist and like blaming them, and then causing like a scene in the shop. We've had that happen. So things like that, just like stuff that you're like, what is going on right now?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not the only one who's said that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Gotten a little bit harebrained.
Yeah.
Post-COVID. Give me some hair horror stories. So you've got to have some hair horror stories.
Like stuff going wrong with their hair?
Yes. And this could be mistakes, maybe not, things going wrong with your client in your chair, or, like something in the salon next to you, or somebody
I've got some good ones. Oh, I've got some really good ones.
Bring it.
Okay. I don't know if this one would even be that funny anymore. It's just one that always pops to my head. But it was when I was in hair school. But I have one. I'm going to tell two. How about that? I'll tell two.
Yeah.
So the first one, I think it was just if that wasn't going to break me doing hair, nothing was. It was just such a weird, strange situation. But when I was in hair school, you every once a Saturday or every Saturday or something like that, you're able to take clients in. And again, the area I'm from is a very small town. And so there was a certain type of clientele that was coming to the hair school to get their $5 highlights. And there was a lady that would come in, and she wanted her whole head bleached. And she had the biggest mullet I've ever seen to this day. I mean, it was just thick. I mean, it was just like Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Was it curly?
Yes.
Nice.
Just insane. I mean, honestly glorious. It was insane. But, to this little, 17-year-old hair, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is terrible. This was during the Victoria Beckham chic asymmetrical bob. So I'm like, what the hell is that thing?
Right. Wow.
And she came in, and, didn't request anybody, but we're like all standing there, like waiting to be like assigned, like almost like a lineup in prison. Like they're like assigning people, and she just singled me out. And was like, I want her, and I was just like, oh,
Why?
okay.
Why you? Why did
I
she
know,
choose
like why
you?
me? But anyway, started to work on her, and it was fine, I guess. And I'm like on my 5th bowl of bleach, and she keeps asking if she can have a cigarette. And I said, ma'am, this is a school. You can't smoke in here. And just kept asking if she could smoke a cigarette in the school. And I just kept saying no. And she was getting like more and more antsy and jittery. And by this time I'm cutting the mullet. And again, I think it was my first time ever cutting a haircut like that. And she just will not sit still in the chair. And she goes to move out of the chair to get a cigarette out of her bag. And I cut her ear with my shears. And so my immediate response was, oh my gosh, to go to like touch her.
Yeah.
And she pushed me and said, don't touch my blood. Make sure you don't touch my blood. Just kept saying that over and over again. And I was just like,
Ugh.
I didn't know. I was shocked. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? And so luckily my instructor saw what happened and came over with towels or whatever. And they bandaged her up. I think I blacked out at that point because I was just like, what do you mean don't touch your blood? Like I just didn't know. And so we obviously I think I threw away like my whole kit or something because I was just like, I don't know what touched what, and I was just trying to make sure I sanitized everything correctly. And it wasn't even that big. It was a very superficial cut, but that horrified me. That was horrible.
Did you ever figure out why she didn't want you to touch her blood?
Never saw her again. Yeah,
Wow.
no idea. So I just was like, well, I don't know what that was about. It was such a strange experience. So, I was so paranoid and I didn't know what happened there, but she just needed a cigarette.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But,
That's disconcerting.
Yeah, you're telling me. But
Worrisome. All right. That's pretty good. I've never heard of that.
I didn't
Never
think you
heard
would.
anyone say, don't touch my blood.
Yeah, don't touch my
Strange
blood.
thing.
Yeah, I don't think I need to know, but luckily I'm fine. Everything's fine.
All right. Well, that's good. Any last words for the community?
Last words for the community. So I would say to anyone out there that is feeling burnt out or just not feeling it anymore, not vibing with where they're at right now in their journey, if it is time for you to make a change, do it. Make a change, because I feel like we have all been through it the past couple of years. And if you are not coming into your space every day happy, excited, and passionate about what you're doing, it's time for you to make that change, whether it be move to a different, field of industry or learn a new technique, learn new thing, do something different, but don't stay stuck anymore. Don't let yourself be burnt out anymore. So make that change and make it now.
Love it. Well, this was awesome. I really appreciate it. And it was great to meet you. And I'm sure the listeners are going to love getting to know you too.
Awesome. Thank you so much.